Okay, so of course G.I. Joe animation is going to continue. It continued after Resolute and even after G.I. Joe Extreme. But is G.I. Joe Renegades going to continue? Because at the upfronts, nothing was announced, but a second season of Transformers Prime was announced.
As far as I know, G.I. Joe Renegades will not be on the air with new episodes at the same time as Transformers will be on the air with new episodes. Beyond that, I don't really know what has or hasn't.
Would you like to continue the series? Will the storyline continue?
I love G.I. Joe Renegades. We'd always kind of plotted it out as a 65-episode arc, so I'd love to have the opportunity to finish that story.
In Transformers Prime, it was a very interesting decision to sort of put Megatron out of commission for almost like half a season. But in doing so, we got a lot more development with Starscream and his machinations. Why did you decide to go that direction?
Quite honestly, that's actually the exact reason we went that direction, was to allow for more time to develop characters that maybe hadn't been as developed, or especially our new characters that had never been introduced before in the universe. So when you have Megatron and Optimus together, it's really hard not to focus on that relationship and spend a lot of time with them. It almost required that we get rid of one of them for a little while to spend some time with the other characters.
In regards to the G.I. Joe thing, first
of course.
I don't know if it's doing DVD release, but I'm hoping some sort of tribute to Klien.
My intention, again, this is not my particular, but I would say that the people who made the show, the intention would definitely be to have a DVD extra. We actually put together a tribute to Klien that we showed at JoeCon this past year, and we would definitely, I would think, want to include that in this DVD. He's a fantastic guy. For those of you who don't know, our character designer on G.I. Joe basically learned he had liver cancer in like December, and a few months later passed. It was terrible. But yeah, we love him, and we'd love to have the tribute that we did.
Because that was at the worst, almost like as much as I love the show, the worst part was the one sort of ongoing tribute to him sort of no longer.
You know what? As you guys all know, animation tends to live forever. So, G.I. Joe Renegades,
it'll be on in
26 of them, repeats somewhere. Yes.
At the Transformers Prime season premiere, you said you wanted to keep the Autobot cast size small, but at the same time, in story terms, it didn't really make much sense to me why Wheeljack is leading and they're in the middle of a war and they need as many Autobots as possible. I don't understand. Why have Wheeljack lead when they need him?
Because we felt that was true to Wheeljack's personality, and because then we can bring him back.
When will he come back?
I guess you'll have to watch.
When you guys
we're like the Native Americans. We waste nothing for Buffalo. Everything you've seen up to this point will eventually be used again. The most time and cost-intensive part of CG is the upfront builds. If we've built it, we're going to find a way to reuse it.
When you guys started casting, did you have an idea of which actors you wanted for which parts already, or did you approach them, or was it more like you guys did open calls for those characters?
You know, it ends up being all of that. What happens is, you definitely, look, we knew we wanted Peter, and pretty quickly when the conversation went, hey, can we get Frank? We knew we wanted Frank. Beyond that, it's a combination of, we all kind of sit around and go, who would be a dream cast? Who would we like to have come in? I did a busted pilot with Marky years ago called Electro and a Dyna Girl. That's why I wanted her to. It was just a pleasure to work with. Other people had particular experiences with some of the other members, and Kevin's done a bunch of shows for me. So it ends up being a combination of you do auditions, voice bank, callbacks, and you have some people that you think might be right, and you purposely bring them in. And then it really is kind of a group decision between studio, network, producers. But I have to say, in this case, I think almost to a part, we were all on the same page on every single role, which made it very easy.
And Jeff Combs, how did you guys get about?
You know, we all love Reanimator, Albert. So I don't remember if I think we actually put him on a please bring in list, if I remember correctly. But I'm not sure we originally had him read for Ratchet. I feel like he may have come in for a different part, and I'll take credit for it, by the way. I don't remember if it was me or not, but I think in the room we decided, oh, you know what, no, let's have him read Ratchet.
He's perfect. He's perfect.
He is protecting that guy.
Yeah.
In the Hasbro panel, they were showing some toys that are coming up, and they showed Ironhide. Now, is Ironhide going to be in any of the upcoming episodes?
At the moment, he's not in but again, we're planning for 65 at least, so we still have a ways to go.
That's just in regard to, does Peter get the nod? If when Ironhide appears?
You know what? He'll have to ask nicely.
In the collaboration and writing process, you know, with Dwayne Capizzi and Bob Orci and Alex Kurtzman, how does that work, and how involved are Orci and Kurtzman in the writing process?
Here's the thing. Kurtzman and Orci were so much more involved than I ever thought they would be. And the way it really started, when we first got together to do Prime, there wasn't really a Hasbro Studios. there was some executives had been hired, and there was this need to be on the air about a year later, but there wasn't any other infrastructure. So for the first month or so, literally Dwayne Capizzi, myself, Therese Trujillo, our animation producer, Dave Hartman, were working out of Kurtzman Orsi's lobby on the Universal lot. And we would literally spend at least a couple hours a day sitting in a room just throwing around story stuff with them and some of the other people at the company. And that continued for quite a while. Then we brought on 4 full-time writers that first season. Joe Cure, Nicole Dubuque, Steve Melching, Marshall Griffin, and they joined the room. That was kind of the next step. And we spent a lot of time and continue to spend a lot of time in writers' rooms breaking story. Most animated series do not have the luxury of a writing staff. It's mostly maybe 1 or 2 story editors and then freelancers. But because the mythology on Transformers is so deep, there's 25 years of it. The little book they handed me was 600 pages of these are the rules. We had, and the movies, and we didn't want to contradict anything. It really required everybody who was going to be involved sitting around at the beginning and really talking through where are we going to go, what do we want to do. So they were involved at every step of that process, and then remain involved at every step. They approve all the artwork. They look at everything. They are much more involved than I ever would have believed when someone first told me that they were going to do this show.
And what's it like, working on a show that, now Hasbro, they're producing like media for all their products and their franchises. What is that process like now compared? I know you worked on Men in Black before, Godzilla, with big franchises as well. Is it different at all, or do you like that Hasbro's moving in this direction?
I would say the one place that's different, it's more similar than not. I would say the one place that's different is, and I'm not a toy expert, but it seems like Hasbro, on at least a number of their brands, has created this mythology behind them that pre-exists me or pre-exists anybody buying the toy. When you buy the toy, you already get kind of the story, whether it's on the back of the pack or whether it's just... And so, again, there was so much more stuff to pull from on Transformers than there had been in even some of those other franchises. Part of that is, again, 25 years. But I would say the biggest difference for me was, as opposed to some other shows where the toy company is really only involved in making toys, I mean, these guys had lived with the brand for a lot of years. They are an incredible ongoing resource for us whenever we have questions, whenever we run big concepts by them because they know better than us which characters the fans tend to be most interested in. What are they hearing on their email chains and stuff. So more partner than probably any toy group I've ever worked with.
So how do you guys go about selecting the characters? You just mentioned that sometimes Hasbro recommends them, like when you have a cameo character on the show.
Early on, we asked them for kind of a list of like who their top 10 or 15 were. Often, we tend to come at character from a characteristics point. What's the personality? What do we need out of that character before we ever assign it a name? So often what will happen is we'll know we want some kind of hot-headed, young blankety-blank. And then we'll ask Rhode Island, is there someone in your canon of characters who fits that? Is it someone we can use, or is the movie already using it, or how is... And then it really just kind of gets whittled down and we figure out what's the best fit. And in some cases, we may actually do a little switch. It may not be exactly what that character has been historically, but they were okay with us bringing a little twist to it. So
and do they? Sorry.
Exactly.
Scientist, samurai.
And that's just we knew what we needed and wanted for our story. We knew that Wheeljack was a popular character. We all thought we could live with the small change.
So for like a character like Wheeljack, was Hasbro also involved in the character design and how he would look on the screen and stuff?
Jose Lopez, who's our lead character designer, asked them for reference because obviously we want to be true to the overall history, and there's always some key elements in all these characters from a visual perspective, whether it's a coloring or a shape of something, and Jose always tries really hard to honor that. But beyond that, no, actually Jose is the guy who kind of starts from scratch with those elements, and then we kind of feed them back and forth. So it really is to a degree his vision for what these. But he also has tremendous familiarity with.
An interesting subplot antagonist character you introduced in the series was Silas, voiced by Clancy Brown. What can we expect to see more of Silas, and what are his aims and goals with involving himself into the whole Decepticon Autobot conflict?
You are definitely going to see more Silas. I'm not going to tell you kind of where the story's going because I think it's pretty cool. But again, if we built it, we're using it. Even if we have to turn it into a zombie, we're going to use it again. So even if we have to make it a twin, we're going to use it again. Somewhere, somehow, we're going to use that build again.
Any idea when we might find out more about Bumblebee and his whole computer voice sort of ailment?
Same thing. That is absolutely a story arc that we've already written in some part, so it is coming.
And is stuff like that more dictated by I know since Hasbro owns everything, they dictate a lot of it. Is that more dictated by what's happening in the movies, and what's more just to kind of keep the bridge between the movie and the cartoons more accessible to younger viewers who will
Basically, the decision not to give Bumblebee a voice.
Yeah.
Honestly, our only real issue with the movies is that we try not to contradict what's going on in the movies. And there are places where we have, quite honestly, but we try not to, and that's true, by the way, of the Exodus novel and the video games. There is this universe. We try to do our own spin on it, but not contradict wholesale some of the stuff that's going on. Quite honestly, for us, I think the decision to do Bumblebee without the voice was then we can tell the story of how did that happen, and maybe eventually does he get his voice back.
It's a great plot.
Exactly. So one of the things about television, not just animation, but all television, is by the end of a season you are dying for story. So you want to leave yourself as many possible story places to go as you can, regardless. And that's honestly why we decided not to give him a voice initially.
What writer gets credit for the Ghostbusters references?
I believe Marcia Griffin actually wrote most of that riff, and Dwayne rewrote a little bit of it, but I believe he would throw that to Marcia.
Speaking of that, noticed the little reference to wearing the suit and the VTOL.
Yes, that. Dwayne will love that you actually got that, because
was that originally supposed to go into the script, or was that just sort of?
No, we wrote that special for you.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. We try, again, you're talking about a show that obviously on its crew attracted fans. So a lot of the people most of the people working on Transformers are fans first. They come with the mythology questions and they want to, hey, why and the how, and they're very careful. We get a lot of, hey, we didn't answer why we did that.
Well, I'm assuming it was animation budget the first time, or just nobody noticed.
Yes, it's not, at the end of the day, it wasn't that important, but.
Regarding the Unicron references and the blood of Unicron, does that mean there's a CGI model being built for Unicron that we could ever glimpse at some point? And a flashback, maybe?
Let's see, we talk about it. I would say that, we try to pay off almost everything we talk about in some way, shape, or form.
Not that Mr. Bloom isn't wonderful, but is there any reason that for the split between the Starscream and the Cobra Commander voices in regards to the voiceover?
As far as why?
Just
why Charlie ended up being Cobra Commander? Or?
Yeah. Well, I mean, because he was doing it before,
right?
And I guess he didn't put the Starscream for the movie. Was there any particular reason?
Yeah, honestly, it was just sort of in that moment of listening and trying to figure out what. Quite often, what happens is you end up with a couple of actors in the same range across a cast, and you want to try really hard to not have similar decibel levels of things. So it really was just sort of circumstance, not particular design.
Are there any hints, anything you can give us for season 2, or anything we might see, anything that might happen?
Honestly, we're like halfway through season 1. Hold on. Enjoy the rest of season 1 first.
With the Comic-Con exclusive being packaged in the Matrix, is that foreshadowing that we'll see the Matrix in Transformers Prime?
Honestly, we had very little to know kind of what the toy group is doing.
Okay.
So in some way, that one is probably where if you see stuff in toy, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to actually be in the series, and nor should it. I mean, they should spin off in places we can't go.
Okay. Because the Matrix is a whole part of the Transformers mythos.
And believe me, we over the course of at least 65 episodes are going to dig into a lot of the mythological touch points of Transformers.
So will we possibly see the Transformers not on Earth at some point in the series?
I would say that is possible.
Cybertron.
I would say that's very possible.
And if and when that possibly happens, would you guys kind of follow along with the movie timeline where Cybertron has been burned?
Yeah, and our mythology as it exists right now for Prime is that Cybertron is uninhabitable. It's been destroyed. Megatron, to take over Cybertron is no big deal. There's nothing there. So that's part of the reason that both the cons and the bots are on Earth. The hope, obviously, for the bots is to someday restore Cybertron to its glory. Perhaps I've given away some future story arc, but right now it's just the hustle.
Now, I thought it was a great choice to start with sort of like a 5-part miniseries, sort of evocative of like cartoons of the 80s and Transformers in the 80s. Whose idea was that, and what was it like sort of basically doing a feature-length movie to start the season? Is it something you guys would like to do again with the show?
Again, I think Chris Orsi and I all came aboard maybe around Labor Day of 2009, and the idea was to get on the air before the end of 2010. Most CG shows, even simpler ones, have about a 2-year production cycle. Kung Fu Pandas and all such. So we had half the time to do a CG show. The most complicated one ever attempted for television, quite honestly. So knowing we want to get on the air in 2010, the idea of getting on with 13 episodes was going to be impossible. So we really tried to, we decided